Watch ye therefore, and pray always, that ye may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man. Luke 21:36. Take heed so that day does not come upon you unaware. Luke 21:34. Welcome to His Word Heals. You can also visit our website for all of our past programs and free downloads at www.hiswordheals.com. Let's first read Psalm chapter 90. Yahweh, you have been our refuge in all generations. Before the mountains were born, or you had brought forth the earth and the world, even from everlasting to everlasting, you are El. You turn men back to dust and say, Return, O children of men, for 1,000 years in your eyes are like yesterday that is past, or like a watch in the night. And of course, this is the verse that Peter is referring to when he says that to Yahweh 1,000 years is like a day, and a day is like 1,000 years. You have swept them away. They are as a sleep, like grass that springs up in the morning. In the morning it flourishes and springs up. At evening it is cut down and withered. For we have been consumed by your displeasure, and by your wrath we are alarmed. You have set our crookednesses before you, our secret sin in the light of your face. For all our days have passed away in your wrath. We spend our years like a whisper. The days of our lives are 70 years, or if due to strength, 80 years. And everyone has been looking at the 70 years. There were 70 years, 2017, 2018, from the time that Israel was made a nation again in a day. There were 70 years leading up to 2017, 2018, but we have not yet looked at, or if due to strength, the 80 years. And so that's what this theory is based on, that the last 7 years will come within the next 10 years leading up to the 80th year since Israel again became a nation. Yet the best of them is but toil and exertion, for it is soon cut off, and we fly away. Who knows the power of your displeasure, and your wrath according to the fear of you? Teach us to number our days, and let us bring the heart to wisdom. So it seems as if Psalms 90 is trying to teach us to number our days. It even tells us that. It tells us that a year is 1,000 years are like yesterday that is past, or 1,000 years are like a day. The days of our lives or generation is 70 years, or if due to strength, 80 years. Teach us to number our days. Return, O Yahweh, how long? And be sorry for your servants. So is Psalm 90 teaching us to number our days leading up to his return? Satisfy us in the morning with your loving commitment, and let us sing for joy all our days. Give us joy according to the days you have afflicted us, the years we have seen evil. Reveal your work to your servants, and your splendor to their children, and let the pleasantness of Yahweh our Elohim be upon us, and confirm the work of our hands for us. O confirm the work of our hands. Genesis 1:14, and Elohim said, Let lights come to be in the expanse of the heavens, to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs, and for appointed times, and for days, and for years. Okay, here in our interlinear scripture analyzer, we can take a look at the Hebrew words behind the English words of this verse. Genesis 1:14, and Elohim said, Let the luminaries come to be in the atmosphere of the heavens, to separate between the day and the night, that they may be for signs, for appointed seasons, for days and years. So let's look at the word behind appointments. That would be H4150. In our lexicon, that is moed or moedim, and it's properly an appointment, a fixed time, a season, specifically a festival, conventionally a year, by implication an assembly. Okay, so for our appointments would be the festivals, the feasts. So the stars, the moon, the sun are in the sky to help us know Yahweh's appointed times. Now let's look at signs. H226 is literally or figuratively a signal, as a flag, beacon, monument, omen, prodigy, evidence, etc. So the sun, moon, and stars are also put in the heavens
We're supposed to watch them. We're supposed to look for them to be signals, flags, beacons, evidence, omens. So let's keep this in mind. That's what the hosts of the heavens are for, to mark his appointments and to give us signs of the times that we're in.
It's not the end, it's only the beginning. Here are a few scriptures that remind us of this before we get started. Isaiah 65:19 through 20. And I shall rejoice in Jerusalem, and shall joy in my people, and let the voice of weeping no more be heard in her, nor the voice of crying. No more is an infant from there going to live but a few days, nor an old man who does not complete his days. For the youth dies 100 years old, but the sinner being 100 years old shall be lightly esteemed. Meaning you will be considered still a youth at 100, and if you die at only 100 years old, you will be considered accursed. It will be a very unusual thing for someone to live only to be 100. People will still be having families and babies, and there will be no more enemy to deceive us. He will be chained for 1,000 years. Yes, there will be some tough times between now and then, but if we are trusting in our Savior Yeshua and are filled with His set-apart Spirit, He promises He will be with us through it all. 1 John 4:4. Ye are of Elohim, little children, and have overcome them, because he who is in you is greater than he who is in the world. John 14:26 and 27. But the Helper, the set-apart Spirit, whom the Father shall send in my name, he shall teach you all, and remind you of all that I said to you. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. In order to make it through what is coming, we need to begin immersing ourselves now in His Word and in His promises, so that the Spirit, the Comforter, can bring all the things that He told us to our remembrance when we need to remember it the most. The very next chapter, after Psalms 90, where he teaches us to number our days to his return, we have Psalms 91, where he tells us not to be afraid and promises that he will be with us. Psalms 91, He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High, who abides under the shadow of the Almighty, he is saying of Yahweh, my refuge and my stronghold, my Elohim in whom I trust, for he delivers you from the snare of the trapper, from the destructive pestilence. He covers you with his feathers, and under his wings you take refuge. His truth is a shield and armor. You are not afraid of the dread by night, of the arrow that flies by day, of the pestilence that walks in darkness, of the destruction that ravages at midday. 1,000 fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, but it does not come near you. Only with your eyes you look on, and see the reward of the wrong ones. Because you have made Yahweh my refuge, the Most High, your dwelling place, no evil befalls you, and a plague does not come near your tent. For he commands his messengers concerning you, to guard you in all your ways. They bear you up in their hands, lest you dash your foot against a stone. You tread upon lion and cobra, young lion and serpent you trample under foot. Because he cleaves to me in love, therefore I deliver him. I set him on high, because he has known my name. When he calls on me, I answer him. I am with him in distress. I deliver him and esteem him. With long life I satisfy him and show him my deliverance. Psalms 92, verse 1 through 5 continues, It is good to give thanks to Yahweh and to sing praises to your name, O Most High, to declare your loving commitment in the morning and your trustworthiness each night, on 10 strings and on the harp, to the sounding chords of the lyre. For you have made me rejoice with your work, O Yahweh. I shout for joy at the works of your hands. O Yahweh, how great are your works. First, we're going to do a quick overview of the entire chart, and then we'll go into each of the years and each of the heavenly signs individually in much more detail. But first, I want to explain how the chart was laid out. It is based on the theory that the 80 years, if due to strength, would be 2027 to 2028, ending on Yom Kippur 2028, which would be when the 7th trump would sound at the end of the 80 years if due to strength. So right here we have the 7th trump sounding on Yom Kippur 2028. which is at the end of the 7th year, because each of the trumps sound at the end of the year, their prospective years. So the 7th year would end Yom Kippur 2028, which is when the 7th trump would sound. So then the 7th year starts when the 6th trump sounds on Yom Kippur in 2027. And then the 5th trump sounds and starts the 6th year on Yom Kippur in 2026. And then back up another year to Yom Kippur 2025, we'd have the 4th trump, which starts the 5th year and ends the 4th year. And then back up, Yom Kippur 2024, we have the 3rd trump, which ends the 3rd year and starts the 4th year. Yom Kippur 2023, the 2nd trump sounds, ending the 2nd year and starting the 3rd year. Yom Kippur 2022, the 1st trump sounds, ending the 1st year and starting the 2nd year. And then Yom Kippur 2021 begins the 1st year, which the 1st trump sounds a year later at the end of the 1st year on 2022. Then before Yom Kippur 2021, I believe, is when the 6th and 7th seals are finishing up. The 144,000 are sealed spiritually, I believe. And we've got the silence in the heaven that takes place at the beginning of the 1st year. Then down here, what I did after I laid out the Revelation timeline, I inserted the signs in the heavens, the blood moons, and the total solar eclipses in their prospective years. And you can clearly see a pattern here. Our next blood moon is 5/26/2021. Then we have one almost exactly a year later, 5/16/2022. Those are both in the summertime. I've got this laid out in three tiers here. The first tier is the fall feasts through the winter. That's when all the signs in the heaven happen during the fall feasts and through the winter. The second one is the spring feast to the summer. And the third one is the summer back to the beginning of the fall feasts again. Those signs that happen in the summer after the spring feasts, but before the fall feasts. And so anyway, we can back to our pattern. We have 3 blood moons in a row. Then we have a total solar eclipse. Then we have 3 more blood moons, and then we have 3 total solar eclipses, and then we have 3 more blood moons and one total solar eclipse. So you can see kind of bookends here. We've got a total solar eclipse over here, then we've got 3 blood moons, 3 solar eclipses, 3 blood moons, and then a single total solar eclipse again. Then we have 2 blood moons, a single total solar eclipse, and 2 more blood moons. And the reason that I've gone beyond the 7th trump Yom Kippur 2028 is because there are still things we're told about in Revelation that happen after the 7th trump. I believe is when the 7 bowl judgments are poured out. We're told that the millennial reign starts. So there are still things that happen after the 7th trump, which is at the end of the 7th year. And then we had some amazing signs showing up in 2033. And I thought, why are these so amazing? And I'll talk more about those in detail later. But what came to me, I believe in that still small voice, was there are 4 years basically after the year after the 7th trump. There are 4 more years. And is it possibly a correlation between the 4 years of Ezra's temple that was restarted in earnest the 2nd year of King Darius and took 4 years to completion? Is that a pattern for the millennial temple? When Yeshua comes to rule and reign, will it take him 4 years just after the pattern to get his spiritual and physical millennial temples in place? Because he wants to rule and reign, we're told, from Jerusalem. So he's going to have his temple to live and rule and reign in from Jerusalem. Additionally, he's got his spiritual temple, which we are the spiritual stones that build up his spiritual temple as well. So I don't know if it's the spiritual or a physical temple or both, but is this going to take 4 years after the 7th trump? What goes on after the 7th trump, and then 4 more years to finish his millennial temple. And this timeline works out
perfectly that there would be 4 years left before that happens and before these amazing signs that happen in 2033. So we'll talk about that more in detail. For the purposes of this video, we're going to briefly touch on the 5th, 6th, and 7th seals. And if you're wondering more about those seals and about the first 4 seals of Revelation, we've already done separate videos on those, and you can visit our website at www.hiswordheals.com, go to our blog page or our videos page, and look for these 3 videos. We've got the 4 horsemen and the seals of Revelation 4 through 6. And then we have the 7-day and 7-year warnings in Scripture, and Daniel chapter 12 as it relates to Matthew 24 and Revelation 11 and 12. So those 3 videos will expand on the seals of Revelation, and as well as Matthew 24 and Daniel chapter 12 as it relates to Revelation. So visit our website, www.hiswordheals.com. But again, we're going to briefly touch on the 5th, 6th, and 7th seals here, but this video is going to concentrate on the trumps of Revelation, the last 7 years.
So a good place to start is at the 6th seal, but actually we also need to remember the 5th seal. So I'm going to read real quick Revelation 6 starting in verse 9. And when he opened the 5th seal, I saw under the slaughter place the beings of those having been slain for the word of Elohim and for the witness which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Master, set apart and true, until you judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell on the earth? And there was given to each one a white robe, and they were told that they should rest a little while longer, until both the number of their fellow servants and their brothers, who would be killed as they were, was completed. Then we come to verse 12, and I looked, and when he opened the 6th seal, and saw a great earthquake came to be, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of heaven fell to the earth as fig trees drop in its ripe figs, being shaken by a strong wind. And heaven departed like a scroll rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved out of its place. And the kings of the earth, and the great ones, and the rich ones, and the commanders, and the mighty, and every slave, and every free one, hid themselves in the caves, in the rocks of the mountain, and said to the mountain and the rocks, Fall on us, hide us, from the face of him sitting on the throne, from the wrath of the Lamb, because of the great day of his wrath has come, and who is able to stand? Then comes Revelation 7, verses 1 through 4, we'll read. And after this I saw 4 messengers standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. And I saw another messenger coming up from the rising of the sun, holding the seal of the living Elohim. And he cried with a loud voice to the 4 messengers to whom it was given to harm the earth and the sea, saying, Do not harm the earth, nor the sea, nor the trees, until we have sealed the servants of our Elohim upon their foreheads. And I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000 out of all the tribes of the children of Israel. So that is 12,000 from each of the 12 tribes. So we see a little interlude here. We have the martyrs who have been slain for at least the last 2,000 years, possibly for all time, under the altar in heaven, and they're asking, how much longer do we have to wait for you to avenge our blood? And they're given white robes as they're waiting and say, just a little while longer, and that's at the 5th seal. Then at the 6th seal, we see that all of these things are going to pass, and a lot of things that are described in the 6th seal sound like the things that are going to take place during the trumps. And then we have a whoa, wait a minute, stop time, where he says, hold on, wait till I seal those on their foreheads that belong to our Elohim, 12,000 from every tribe. And so then there's a pause at the 6th seal. And that is, of course, before the 7th seal is opened. And the 7th seal being opened is actually when the trumps start. So before the trumps start, I think we're given a glimpse in the 6th seal of what's going to take place during the trumps, how those that belong to him are being sealed, a certain group of them are being sealed, and getting ready for the trumps to start. Then Revelation 7, 9 through 10, after this I saw I looked and I saw a great crowd, which no one was able to count, out of all nations and tribes and peoples and tongues, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, dressed in white robes, and palm branches in their hands, and crying out with a loud voice, saying, Deliverance belongs to our Elohim who sits on the throne and to the Lamb. So we have a bunch of people now after the sixth seal, just before the seventh seal is broken and the trumps start, that are now seen in heaven wearing white robes. Who were the white robes given to? The white robes were given to the martyrs. So is this huge group of people standing in heaven at the sixth seal, all of the martyrs that have been given their white robes, signifying the time of the end of the martyrs is coming? They're all waving palm branches, and they overcame through the blood of the Lamb. And then Revelation 14, 1 through 5, I looked and I saw a Lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written on their foreheads. And I heard a voice out of heaven, like the voice of many waters, and like the voice of a loud thunder. And I heard the sound of harpists playing their harps, and they sang a renewed song before the throne and before the four living creatures and the elders. And no one was able to learn the song except the 144,000 who were redeemed from the earth. They are those who are not defiled with women, for they are maidens or virgins. They are those following the Lamb wherever he leads them on. They were redeemed from among men, being the firstfruits to Elohim and to the Lamb. And in their mouth was found no falsehood, for they are blameless before the throne. So anyway, all of this is taking place sometime before Yom Kippur 2021. And what we have, the signs in the heaven in 2021 would be May 26th, 2021. And that's a blood moon on Sivan 15. And Sivan 15 was actually the date of the death and birth of Judah, which of course is where the tribe of Judah came from, the tribe of the Jews, or it could also signify the southern kingdom. Okay, before we move on, I also want to go back one more time to those in the white robes. During what feasts are the white robes worn? It's definitely traditional for everyone to wear white robes on Yom Kippur, and the priests also wore white robes on Yom Kippur. So at the sixth seal, we see all of those probably martyrs wearing their white robes that they were given, standing in heaven waving palm branches. If that is the case, then what feast might this be representing that's getting ready to start? Wouldn't it be a Yom Kippur service, Day of Atonement? I believe this points to everyone in heaven getting ready for the great Yom Kippur service. So now we'll move on to Revelation 8, 1 through 6. And when he opened the seventh seal, there came to be silence in the heaven for about a half an hour. And I saw the 7 messengers who stand before Elohim, and to them were given 7 trumpets. And another messenger came and stood at the slaughter place, holding a golden censer. And much incense was given to him, that he should offer it with the prayers of the set apart ones upon the golden slaughter place, or altar, which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense with the prayers of the set apart ones went up before Elohim from the hand of the messenger. And the messenger took the censer and filled it with fire from the slaughter place or altar and threw it to the earth. And there were noises and thunders and lightnings and an earthquake. And the 7 messengers who held the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. So let's compare that to Leviticus 16, 7 through 12, which is speaking of a Yom Kippur service. And he, meaning the priest, shall take the 2 goats and let them stand before Yahweh at the door of the tent of appointment. And Aaron shall cast lots for the 2 goats, one lot for Yahweh and the other lot for Azazel. And Aaron shall bring the goat on which the lot for Yahweh fell, and shall prepare it as a sin offering. But the goat on which the lot for Azazel fell is caused to stand alive before Yahweh to make atonement upon it, to send it into the wilderness to Azazel. And Aaron shall bring the bull of the sin offering, which is for himself, and make atonement for himself and for his house, and shall slay the bull as the sin offering, which is for himself, and shall take a fire holder filled with burning coals from the fire from the slaughter place altar before Yahweh with his hands filled with sweet incense beaten fine, and shall bring it inside the veil. So there's a lot here. We can see that the messenger in heaven in Revelation, just prior to the seventh seal being opened and the trumps being blown, is filling a censer with fire from the slaughter place in heaven, and he throws it to the earth. That is definitely comparable with the Yom Kippur service, as are all of those standing in white robes in heaven at the same time as well. One other thing that is just speculation on my part, but it just came to me that this is quite interesting. I never understood what necessarily the two goats were. I know that one is put out into the wilderness with their sins upon it, and they didn't want it to come back to camp. They were sending their sins out into the wilderness, and sometimes the goats would come back, and so they started pushing it over a ledge or a cliff so that it wouldn't come back, but that wasn't what they were commanded to do. Originally, they were just supposed to send it into the wilderness, into Azazel with all of their sins. And then the other goat is supposed to be a slaughter offering for Yahweh. So one goat dies and one goat lives. It's interesting that in Revelation 8, 1 through 6, we have the martyrs in heaven that would seem to be possibly the goat that died for Yahweh. And then we have the 144,000, or those that have not been martyred, that maybe go into the tribulation alive, could possibly represent the other goat. They're going into the tribulation where the enemy, i.e. Azazel, is master over the earth at that time, and they're being sent in with their sins into the wilderness, although I believe those that are going into the wilderness are no longer under their sins, because if they're forgiven by Yeshua, obviously they don't still have their sins upon themselves. But I think the goat with the sins being laid on it is just a picture of those that will be going into the wilderness of the tribulation to Azazel. So there's one group that is martyred, or i.e. possibly a picture of those that died for the witness of Yahweh, and then there's the other group that go into the great tribulation. Anyway, what's happening in the heavens at that time? Well, we have the blood moon on 5/16/22, ER 15, and that's the second Passover, and that would be in the year 2022. This is the first year of tribulation that is from Yom Kippur 2021 to Yom Kippur 2022, and this again is when the seventh seal is opened. That's Revelation 8, 1 through 6 I just read. The seventh seal is opened. There's silence in heaven for a half an hour. The censer of fire is thrown to the earth from heaven's altar. There's noise, lightning, thunder, and earthquake. And here we are, the seventh seal. Let's see. Revelation 11, 1 and 2. And a reed like a measuring rod was given to me, and a messenger stood, saying, Rise and measure the dwelling place of Elohim, and the slaughter place, and those worshiping in it, but cast out the court which is outside the dwelling place, and do not measure it, for it has been given to the nations, and they shall trample the set-apart city underfoot for 42 months, until verse 3, when the two witnesses begin their 1260 days, or 3.5 years, and we'll look at that when we get to 3.5 years from now. Compare that to Daniel 9:27, and he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. So this is the beginning. 2021 to 2022 would be the first year, or the first of 7 years, 1 week of years. And in the middle of the week he shall put an end to the slaughtering and meal offering, again 3.5 years later. And on the wing of abominations he shall lay waste, even until the complete end, and that which is decreed is poured out on the one who lays waste. Couldn't the he here be both Yeshua and the anti-Messiah? Just as Yeshua confirmed the covenant with Israel at the beginning of his ministry and put an end to the need for a sin offering at the end of his 3.5-year ministry in the midst of his 7 years, will the anti-Messiah confirm his covenant with his followers for 7 years, starting in 2021, allowing the sacrifices to take place on Temple Mount, but then 3.5 years later, in the midst of his 7 years, likewise declare an end to the need for sacrifices by claiming to be the Messiah or God himself, hence the abomination of desolation, declaring himself to be God? If so, then would Yeshua finish his 7-year ministry in the form of the witnesses, the 2 witnesses, who shall lay waste in the form of their plagues on the wing of the anti-Messiah's abomination, meaning that when the anti-Messiah stops the sacrifices that he allowed to take place and the witnesses begin their testimony, would that be the witnesses continuing for the next 3.5 years, finishing a 7-year testimony of Yeshua? Yeshua was here the first 3.5 years, then the 2 witnesses take over for the last 3.5 years before the end of the tribulation. They will witness for the last 3.5 years, also during the anti-Messiah's last 3.5 years. And this could all be on Heshvan 15, October 13th, 2021, the date of Jeroboam's false feast. Could be a significant date that year, possibly. And then we saw in that passage where the set-apart place was being measured. So is this when part, if not all, of the temple is completed, or possibly just the altar completed? We don't know. Time will tell.
That brings us to the end of part 1, and what we're doing is making a multi-part series out of our Revelation Signs Last 10 Years video, and that was originally published in March of 2019. It was pretty rough because it was the first video, one of the first videos I put together. I had been doing podcasts before that, and so I'm trying to refine it, break it up into smaller parts, easier to digest. But the original one is found on YouTube, as well as our website at www.hiswordheals.com, and I'm slowly migrating all of our videos over to Brighteon, since we are getting censored from YouTube when we talk about current events. So you can also visit us at His Word Heals on Brighteon.com, and that's brighteon.com/channels/He Still Heals. And our channel is called His Word Heals, but it is labeled He Still Heals. And then again, of course, go to our website for the parts about the 4 horsemen, the first 4 seals of Revelation, 7-day and 7-year warnings, and Revelation as it relates to Daniel 12 and Matthew 24. Please stay tuned. We're going to do the rest of this video in parts that are easy to digest. We're finished with the seals of Revelation. When you watch all of those, our next one in this series will start on the first trump of Revelation. Blessings and shalom to all of you and everyone in your home.